What's going on, Instagram land? It's your boy Jake, and today we're going to talk about how I flip houses on autopilot, and 99.9% of the time, I never step foot inside of these homes. So we're going to do a little presentation, share a couple kumbaya stories about that. So come on in. I'm welcoming you in right now. The water is warm. I'm going to get on Facebook Live as well right now. We got Instagram here. Facebook is about to come on. What's going on, you guys? What's going on? And Facebook, you are now live as well. What's going on to you? To Facebook, to Instagram. How you guys doing? TJ the Tattooed Realtor, what's up, my friend? How you doing, man? Hey guys, so we are going to talk about today how to flip houses, how I flip houses on autopilot without ever stepping foot inside. And I guess that's kind of a lie. It's not ever, but 99% of the time, I don't step foot inside for the duration of these flips when I'm flipping these houses. And I think you're going to be enjoying this. And I also think you may end up looking at things a little bit differently after we talk about this. So, like I said, come on in. The water is quite warm. And if you're just joining in, we are going to be talking about today how to flip houses, how specifically I flip houses on autopilot without ever stepping foot inside. Hope you guys are ready for this one. We're going to talk, we'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll dance, we'll sing, we'll bond. So let's do this, you guys. So I'm going to let a few more come on in. Did I see Kenny on there? What's up, man, from high school? What's going on? How you doing, bro? All right, come on in, come on in, come on in. People, all right, hey, let's do this. All right, you guys, we're going to talk about how to flip houses on autopilot from hundreds of miles away. This is how I run my business. This is how the game is played these days. This is how I've been able to teach quite a few people how to run their businesses. And it's kind of the same model whether you're flipping houses in your own backyard or if you're flipping houses, all the way across the country, if you're flipping houses a couple hundred miles away. It's the same process regardless. It is a system. It's not an art. You're not picking out your favorite granite from Home Depot or from the custom store and carrying it over in your own truck and then installing it perfectly and just doing these amazing custom things. Now, that's great, especially if you're doing something in your own house, a place you're going to live in. But remember, we are investors. If we're flipping houses, we're looking at these properties like investors, not as consumers. So let me teach you how investors of today's market are starting to beat out the old man investors and old woman investors from yesteryear that have romanticized the old way of doing it. There's a new way, there's a new game in town, there's new technology coming out, and there's people like me that are singing the gospels here on Instagram and on Facebook. So let's talk about it. Is that cool? Now, first off, Facebook, can you hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up or a hello. Just let me know that you can hear me. Instagram, if you guys can hear me, I do not have the microphone on here, so it's going on my phone. I have the mic on through the computer on Facebook. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. If you would be so kind, I would greatly appreciate it. My wife is on. Heck yeah. All right. What's going on, you guys? Perfect. All right, you too. Perfect. Hey, what's up, Nick? All right, so you guys, yesterday I introduced myself, or I guess I reintroduced myself. There's a lot of new followers to this page. There's not a lot of new people to this movement. And, it's important for me to introduce myself. So yesterday we talked about where I came from, how I got into this business, where I was broke, had my back against a corner. I was writing my failure plan. I was depressed. I grew up broke. I grew up poor. I grew up with anxiety issues, communication issues, all the 9 yards, right? Anything that you could think of. Well, not anything, but a lot of stuff I've been lucky enough to overcome. Now, today, right, we're going to kind of pick up where we left off yesterday. So yesterday I told you about how I did my first deal. I found lenders off of Facebook. I was able to flip that house, pay everyone back, including my wife, who is watching right now. What's up, babe? She was my girlfriend at the time, and she believed in me so much that she lent me the money on her credit card for me to be able to go forward. She lent me over 10 grand to be able to get a mentor who then taught me a lot of this business. I modeled that mentor, and then I made modifications to the game to be able to fit my personality and the way the market was changing, and it worked really, really well. I've been off to the races ever since. I flipped over 800 houses, right? But when I first started, and I got that first taste of success in this business, that first flip that I completed, and I made that money. It was like 45 grand. I gave 7 grand in cash, and $100 bills, or 7, 8 grand, or whatever it was. Gave that to the real estate agent. I had a little side deal with him. If he could do certain things as far as time frame and getting under contract at a certain price point, I agreed to give him a piece of it. It was awesome. I had tears in my eyes, actually one single tear running down my cheek. Don't worry though, it was very masculine. It flexed on the way down. But you know, after that moment, I realized that I was off to the races. I had a failing business that I was trying to get out of. It was my first, bout with entrepreneurship right before I got into this flipping houses thing. And, you know, it was one of the most humiliating moments or periods of my life, because I had to admit to a lot of people that thought that I was inspiring, that I was doing something big. I had to admit to everybody, myself, my girlfriend, all of her friends, everybody in my life that thought I was doing big things. I had to admit to them that not only was I failing, but I was broke and I needed help. And so after that first bout, I got in the house flipping thing. It ended up working out. I made that money. I figured out that it worked. It was just like, it was an overwhelming experience in my own mind, in my heart. But what that did, it gave me the empowering feeling of being able to fire my clients with this failing business that I had started and really just go all in on this real estate game. Now, I never recommend that to any of you guys to go all in on real estate from the get-go, because these days in 2019, I am all about multiple streams of income. My wife and I, we invest. Right, we've done a lot of different things. I speak a little bit here and there on real estate. There's a lot of different ways that you can make money these days, especially with what social media and online marketing and that kind of thing provide for us as far as opportunity is concerned. But at the time, I went all in, and real estate was my only thing. And so when I first started, you know, I had the money that I had made on the first flip. I didn't have any construction experience though. I didn't have any real estate license. I still don't have any construction experience or real estate license. But what I did have was drive, right? I knew that I would outwork everybody. I knew that I had a little bit of hustle, and especially when money was involved, I would work 10 times harder than everyone else. So at that time in 2012, once I got paid on my first flip, I knew that locally I was competing with a bunch of these old people. Now I call them dinosaurs these days, not because they're old, but because they're becoming extinct, because they're using old ways of using their own cash, and they're their own contractors, and they're their own real estate agent, and they feel like they have to wear all these roles, and it doesn't allow them to pivot and move quickly and be able to make quick changes in this marketplace. Now, people like me that got in, and there's a few of us out there, we're all kind of, you know, under the radar, but you know, I don't have any real estate license. I'm not good at construction. My wife is on here. She'd be able to vouch for me. I can't even build shelves or hang them up. Like, if we're hanging pictures up at my house, my wife is hanging them up, because if I hung them up, they'd be crooked and to the side. And that's just the way it is, you guys. But I'm able, because I don't have those skills, and because I'm not the one that's responsible for every aspect of these flips. Because I don't have all that on my shoulders, and I'm able to delegate and automate a lot of that process, I'm able to make super quick moves, and in today's game, speed is king, right? And I did something on Instagram Live where I did like this is probably 2 weeks ago, I did a poll. I said, hey, speed is king. Let me know if you agree or if you don't agree. I think it was like 80% of people agreed. We had, you know, I think like 40 or 50 people that agreed, but there was another 10 to 15 that didn't agree. And I was talking to people, you know, one of my buddies, I don't know if you're on here, but he's a professional poker player. He's like, no, speed is not king for what I do. I have to make sure I make as well of a decision as possible, so that patience is king for me. So speed is king when it comes to flipping houses and moving forward on opportunities for new ventures, right? Speed is not necessarily king for, you know, poker players and things like that. So this is all in context. But with flipping houses, the fact that I don't have the experience, the fact that I didn't have the money, the fact that I still, you know, fund all my deals, even though we do have the money to do it, we still fund our deals using other people's money. And the fact that I don't have a real estate license, it allows me to be quick and nimble enough. Like, you got this thing like the Ultimate Warrior thing, or the Ultimate Ninja Warrior thing. I'm like bouncing around. It allows me to go into the marketplace and be able to shift quickly, because I'm not responsible for every single piece of the puzzle. Now, what I am responsible for in this business is putting all those puzzle pieces together in order to have one big happy family. But when I first started, I felt, because I saw all these dinosaurs, I didn't know that they were going extinct at the time, but I saw all of these dinosaurs. What's up, Darren? I was just talking about you. I saw all these dinosaurs that were out there, and they were doing the whole project themselves. And I thought, hey, you know, I don't have the cash that these dudes have. I don't have the experience with construction that these dudes have. I'm not a realtor, so I'm going to have to outwork them and be creative, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, like after I got that first deal done, I think I did 5 deals my first year. I made my 6 figures flipping houses, and I was super proud. But I was working my ass off. Excuse my language, but I was working my ass off. I was driving all over Southern California. I would go to Home Depot, look at materials. I would go to the job site. I would talk to the contractor at like 9 a.m. Like, hey, what's going on? I bring him coffee. Hey, what's going on? What do we got going today? Oh, Jake, well, we've got, we're putting the cabinets up and we're doing this and maybe painting this room or, whatever it is. Just bear with me here. And so I'm like, okay, good. Then I'd go meet a realtor and we'd have coffee over at Starbucks and we'd talk about new properties that were on the market. Then we'd drive 45 minutes away and I would actually go into that property and look at it and say, you know what? This is not a good fit, but I'm going to go ahead and go back to the job site. Drive another 45 minutes, go to the job site, kick around, say, hey, contractor, what's going on now? It's like, Jake, not much has changed in the last hour and a half since you've been here last. We're still putting in cabinets and painting this room, right? And so then I'd go somewhere else and I'd want to meet with these lenders in person. Then I'd go to the meetup groups and just network. And look, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. I was out there hustling. I was at this point like making money. I was living my dream. This woman that had believed in me, right? This woman that invested in me and saw more in me than I saw in myself, right? When I first got into the game, we got engaged and we got married and we paid for our wedding ourselves. And it was like this big empowering feeling. We felt so good about life and we're working at it. And there's no better feeling than working super hard at something that you enjoy doing and just everything was going well. And we're on cloud 9. We're tired, right? But I was working 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days trying to do this business. I was spinning my wheels. I didn't know that at the time, but I was out there doing it. And I would get properties, right? I would get them because I would force them. I would not take no for an answer, and I would always be pivoting, always be quick on my toes. And we're getting them. And after those 16-hour days, me and my wife, she would work a long day and then we'd go out to dinner. We were exhausted. We would have a drink and be like, our eyes would just be like barely open, but we were making it happen. And we were doing it big and we were so proud and we're starting this new family. And it was like everything was falling into place. And I thought, you know what? As I work harder, I'm going to put in my reps, right? My repetitions. It's like lifting weights, put in those repetitions and you'll get stronger. And I thought, you know what? If I keep doing this, then maybe at some point I can get that real estate license, or maybe if I'm on site enough, like maybe I could, possibly learn how to get a contractor's license in the future, and I'll be a millionaire, and I'll be able to do what all these dinosaurs are doing that I'm competing with. Maybe that'll be me someday when I'm 60 years old, right? And when I started this business, I wasn't, it was 7 years ago. I was 27. I was 26 and had just turned 27, and I was making it happen. I was proud. I was networking and it was just what I wanted to do. I was an entrepreneur, right? Literally, I was an entrepreneur. I know it's a hashtag buzzword, hashtag entrepreneur, but I was doing it and I felt so good about it because I was taking risks, but I was able to reap the rewards of it and knew that because I was working my butt off, I was able to put myself in that position, right? Excellent, excellent feeling. Now, and I was doing this 6 days a week. So April 6th, of 2013, my wife and I, we had been married for about 7 months at this point. We got married on August 4th, 2012. And if you're watching, I remembered that. So August 4th, 2012. So 8 months later, right? Approximately eight months later. I remember it was a Saturday. I remember it was nice outside here in Southern California. I mean, even today, it's like 70 degrees and it's January. So it was April, it was spring, like perfect skies. It was probably 85 degrees. I'm wearing my shorts. We're at a friend of ours. We're at their kid's birthday party. They're throwing water balloons around. It was like so nice. And we had both had the day off. So we're just hanging out, enjoying it, watching other people with their young families, knowing that that's what we wanted. It was just, I remember how nice it was. And at the end of that birthday party, and I think, our friend's daughter turned like 3 or 4 years old. At the end of that birthday party, April 6, 2013, life changed. We got into the car. My wife had her phone in the car. She didn't have her phone with her at the place. She had like 10 missed calls from a Washington State area code. We're in Southern California. And she started listening to voicemails. And we drove her car, so I was in the passenger seat. And she was listening to things and her face just turned pale. She was like, something was wrong. She didn't say anything, and I remember sitting over on the passenger side just looking at her like, what's going on, what's wrong? And she's just like frozen. I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, something's going on with my dad. And it was the sheriff had left voicemails, a ton of voicemails on her phone, and was saying, hey, you got to call us back. You got to call us back. It's in regards to your father. It's in regards to your father. Please call us back. And I knew something was wrong. She knew that something was wrong. But we weren't certain exactly what happened. But listening to those voicemails, I could hear them. It wasn't on speakerphone, but I could hear what was going on. There was concern in somebody's voice on the other end. And so she called this number back, and there was just chaos going on. And they said, I'm sorry, your father has been shot and killed by a neighbor. And that's when, I don't even remember what else was said. I was just seeing stars, everything slowed down. I don't even know what was going on inside. I had a panic attack, but I had to be there for my wife. It wasn't my father. I didn't necessarily even have a good relationship with the guy. He didn't like me that much. But I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this was such a good day. We just 5 minutes ago heard the birds chirping outside. We're looking out up at the sun. We both had a day off. We're so proud of the momentum that we had created in our life. And then everything changed, right? Everything changed in that moment. And for a number of reasons, I'm going to tell you about those. So we got that call. Her dad had been murdered. And so we ended up having to figure out how to drop everything, fly up to Washington, and handle everything, right? And so it's family first. I'm all about family. Around these parts, we're all about family. And so, there's no question. We're going to drop everything. And so I didn't really think about it at the time, but as we started flying out there, I started processing it because it was either early in the morning or late at night or something. And I started processing, dude, I spend 16 to 18 hours a day on these job sites, and I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't even care what was going to happen because we had to handle this for the family. We didn't know what was going on. And we were literally gone for 4 or 5 weeks, right? I was no longer able to be on that job site every day, checking in with these guys and girls every couple of hours, talking to realtors all the time, making sure that I was present on these walkthroughs, that I was there with the lenders, that I was at these networking events. All of a sudden, everything changed. And so I remember making the calls to the real estate agents I was working with because we had a property under contract or 2 properties under contract. I remember calling the contractors, just telling everybody hey, here's what happened. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I do know I'm probably not going to be available on the phone. I'm sure as hell not going to be on the job site. I'm 2 states away. And so I just really need your help. I really need you to coordinate with each other and just let me know what you need from me, but just understand if you don't hear from me for a couple of days at a time, this is why. And, I'll never forget that situation because it said, Jake, handle your stuff. We got your back. We'll let you know if we need anything. So over those 4 or 5 weeks, I would get texts here and there, right? I'd get a call every once in a while. I'd call it back, later on in the day or the next day. And contractor needed to get paid or a contractor had a question. And it was interesting because once I was forced into that scenario, and we had to, handle all of my father-in-law's affairs. We had to, all of his stuff. He didn't plan on that happening, right? There was a lot of open ends that we had to tie up. And we had to deal with, the prosecutor for the county. We had to deal with court. We had to deal with restraining, all this crazy, crazy stuff that I was never expecting, never thought I'd be put in that position. And, but we were dealing with it, right? And we handled it. Real estate helped us financially to be able to handle a lot of that stuff. But I wasn't on site and I wasn't even thinking about my projects, but my people were handling it. And, if they needed to get paid, I would talk to them and then I put them in touch with each other, put the contractor in touch with the lender, put the contractor in touch with the real estate agent, put the real estate agents in touch with the lender, say yes or no. If people would text me if, hey, what do you want to do with this property? Do you think we should do this? I'd look at it and say yes, just send it on, right? And I just had to trust that I had put people that would at least kind of help me out in position to succeed and just hope that there would be minimal damage by the time I got back. So 4 or 5 weeks later, we ended up getting back. We handled as much as we could handle on that trip. It was time for us to go home, get back to normal, or at least try to, which, by the way, it takes a lot to recover from something like that. And so we went back home, and, I started getting back to it. Things were weird, but it was I have to force it. I have to take action. This is what I've always done. Like, I got to get back to my dreams. Life happens. Insert cliche here. Like, it's not what happens to you in life. It's how you respond. And, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to respond, which I believe. I'm not trying to be sarcastic too much about that. But, it was hard for me to be pumped up. I just seen some stuff that I hadn't necessarily expected, had to deal with some people that didn't necessarily, we'll just leave it at that, okay? They weren't necessarily good people. So I'm getting back to things, and I got some help from some family where they would talk me through things, like just making sure that I was okay and so forth. My dad, my brother, my mom. And so I was talking to them, and they were concerned, but I told them everything was fine. And so my dad has had health issues for most of my life, and probably about the time I was 8 or 9. All growing up, he had surgeries. He was sometimes in and out of the hospital. He always ended up being okay, but these hospital visits and health scares were like a regular thing. And so literally 6 weeks to the day after we lost my father-in-law, I got a call from my brother. And my brother had said, he was hysterical, and I was like, hello? And he's just huffing and puffing and just literally hysterical. It was like, Dad just had a heart attack right in front of me. I did CPR on him for 10 minutes. He's not coming back. I'm behind the ambulance. I don't know what to do. Just freaking out. I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh. And I get goosebumps even talking about it. I'm sorry about that. But, I didn't know what to do. And so going through that, I automatically resorted to what I had been through 6 weeks prior with how to take control of the situation, what to expect, what to expect with a funeral home and stuff that I didn't want to be in the middle of, but I had to do this, and I'm gonna tell you right now, being the oldest and having a parent pass away, there's nothing that makes you grow up quite like that. And so that was something that happened. It was literally right after something happened with my wife. It was a weird time. It was a time that, it was a crazy time. But I had to drop everything again, right? Couldn't even get really back into it before I dropped everything again. Told everybody, hey, look, here's what's going on. Here's what's happening. I've got to bounce. And, I need your help again. You guys know how to call each other. Let me know if you need an executive decision to be made. And, let's do this whole fire drill again. And I was MIA a little bit more this time around because it was my father. It was something I wasn't expecting. My dad was just the week prior talking to me through getting over what I had gone through with my father-in-law, how to, be there for my wife, how to not question myself and so forth. And all of a sudden we lost him. Okay. Now I grew up a mama's boy. I grew up with my mother for the most part because my dad had got laid off and he was, he did job to job. He was staying on the couch in my grandma's house. And so we're primarily with my mom. My mom is a gangster. And she supported us, and she had our back to everything. But, I had a good relationship with my dad. And, we sent him out in style. I spoke and ran the service that we had for him. We buried him in style in a casket that he would have wanted. It was a beautiful service. We handled that. My brother and I did, and I was prepared for it, as weird as it is, because I just gone through it 6 weeks ago. I knew how to negotiate with funeral homes, which, by the way, that's a thing. And it's not something that is very fun. I still have pretty crazy feelings about that. But, fast forward, and I hate, I don't mean for the sob story, but this is part of my story, okay? And so we ended up getting back. It was about 4 to 6 weeks later. I don't even really remember when. So all in all, once I had gotten back, I started realizing, I remember, because we drove, we didn't fly, and I'm just thinking I've been gone for 3 months. I wouldn't be surprised if I was going to be on the verge of failure again. I know how to do this real estate flipping thing, but gosh, man, I'm not really setting myself up. And remember, my first 12 months in real estate, I made 6 figures doing this, right? I made over 100 grand. I think I made 125. And right around there, 120, 125. And I got back, and I was just bracing myself for all this crap that I would have to clean up. And it wasn't with a lot of flips, but I was just figured that, hey, I need to get everybody back on track and hey, team meeting everybody, that type of stuff. I got back, and lo and behold, everything was running 10 times smoother, 10 times better. Everybody was on schedule. Everybody knew what was going on. They were telling me, hey, Jake, we got it. Don't worry, you need more time, go do your thing. So things were running better after I dealt with the passing of my father-in-law and then the passing of my dad, 6 weeks apart. And stepping away from a business that for the previous, 14 months, I was there every day, micromanaging, being there in the trenches with everyone. I stepped away and things ran better. Now, first off, that made me realize, hey, where's my value at here? But secondly, it's like, hey, I did a good job of putting those right puzzle pieces together to make this beautiful picture. These people are handling it, like these guys and girls are communicating with each other like it's no big deal. And everybody was working together, and just this momentum had started, and this system was rolling. And I worked my butt off to get that boulder to start moving, but it seemed like it was going downhill at that point. It was just moving on its own. And all I had to do was, if it started going off course, I would just tweak it in the other direction to start going straight again. Just making these big executive level decisions. No, hey, instead of that, let's go with this. The comps changed. All right, you got it. I started going to these job sites less and less, and I started researching why things were going better when I was gone. This is the opposite of what was going on in the market, opposite of what was going on with these local investors. I started researching what was working, and I started kicking it to the street what wasn't working. I needed to do something with my day. I needed some type of distraction from what I had just gone through the previous 2.5, 3 months. I also needed to figure out what I was doing right so I could continue doing it right. So I started looking at every single thing that I did, and I started implementing and doubling down and tripling down on what I was doing right, and just eliminating what I was doing wrong. So I went from having 18-hour days at times, 12 to 18-hour days, doing the flipping thing, to having 4-hour days doing the flipping thing. Had all my weekends open. I felt useless, to be honest with you, because I was working a third of the time. But the end of that year, the end of 2013, I quadrupled my income and then some. And remember, I was making over 6 figures before that, my first year of real estate investing, and I quadrupled that. People like me weren't supposed to have money like that. And I know that the grand scheme of things, there's billionaires out there. There's people that are making a lot more money but for me, that's more money than me or my family had ever made. And I was like, whoa. Whoa. And I was working less time. The less I worked, it forced me to make the better decisions when I did work. And that system was just going. Momentum is so crazy in this business. Now, at first, even these days, even if you're using the right systems, it's hard, right? It's not super difficult work, but it's not a cakewalk either. Like, you have to get outside of your comfort zone. It's hard up here, right? It's a mindset game, but if you have the right game plan and you have a strong mindset, and if real estate agents like, no, like you're an idiot, or if a lender's like, no, I'm not going to lend to you, or if a contractor's like, I don't work with investors, a lot of people just buckle, right? The people that make it are like, no, actually you're wrong, and I'm going to be evangelical for my cause, and what I'm trying to do with my life and my circle of influence, my friends. As long as I believe in what I'm doing, then every no, this is a cliche too, but every no is one step closer to a yes. Okay, and so that is my origin story, right? I lost a father-in-law and a father. I had regrets about both of those. There's things I look back on. Like, I would give all this up to be able to have one more day with my dad. I'd like to sit and have coffee and stay up all night and talk to him about life, right? I'm a father now. I have 2 kids. I have a marriage, I have mortgages. I'm a normal guy, right? I'd love to be able to talk to my dad being an adult like this, but I don't know if I'd ever have got to this point if it wasn't for what happened. So all this, right? This whole house flipping thing, me sharing this stuff with you, this is my silver lining. This is me carrying on a legacy because I went through some shit to get here, and that's why I'm here with you guys, right? So, giving you that information, that's why I do what I do, why I do it, how I do it, and how I was forced to start doing it this way. And it wasn't planned. I probably, if that stuff wouldn't ever have happened to me, I would have never done this stuff, okay? But it did, and that's how my story is written. But this is why I get to pass this stuff forward and share what I learned about this business, and from the mentors that I've had and the different things that I found out through very difficult times, right? This is why I share it, right? And for the longest time, I kept this close to the chest like it was a poker game. I didn't let anybody see my cards. I was doing well with it. But then once I started sharing it, it forced me to be in a mindset of, this is all abundant, there's enough for everybody. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I got rid of like the secrecy of what I do, like my business took off even more. Like I failed, I made some dumb decisions. When I got money, when I should have never got money, and I wasn't prepared to have money, I put it into investments, and it wasn't flipping houses, but I put it into stuff that I just didn't do research. I just used my ego. I was like, hey, anything I can touch is going to make money. I just went through all this crap. We lost it all. Me and my wife quadrupled our income, flipping houses only, and worked a lot less. I lost every dime of that really quick after putting into dumb investments, picking business partners that I didn't necessarily do the proper amount of research on. But I made all of it back by flipping houses methodically, right? I put my ego in check a few times. Like I said, I've done a lot of things wrong. but I've done a lot of things right too, and I try to keep doing the things that I do right. So that is my story, you guys, and that's why I'm here today. And that took, looks like, half hour for me to tell you that, but it's important. So that's where I came from, and that, I don't have the experience that a lot of these other people have. I don't have the money that a lot of these other people have. I've lost it a few times, right? I don't have the construction experience, but what I do have is a system that anytime I've ever got punched in the stomach or punched in the face, metaphorically, of course, in this business, I've been able to just start from scratch and stack those chips right back up. I'm not scared of failure. Well, I am, but not in real estate. I mean, market crashes, I know that after it's done crashing, I will buy a house every day using the same exact system that I use, because I feel like as far as what's available with resources like money, with technology, and the way that the game is, the direction it's moving toward, I feel like I can rebound from anything, right? And that's an empowering feeling. It could be dangerous if you don't use that for good, but it's also a very empowering feeling where you're not scared of failure and you can design your life the way that you want to, because you know that financially you'll be okay. Because real estate, right? Every industry's changed. I mean, you used to book flights by calling a 1-800 number and waiting for 30 minutes. Now you go to Expedia.com. You used to have your own car to drive. Now you can go on your phone and somebody's going to pick you up, right? But guess what hasn't changed in the last 10 years, right? The last 50 years, the last 70 years, real estate. I'm flipping houses that were built in the 1940s, right? People are living in the same neighborhoods as they were in 1956, same exact house. I'm just putting some new granite, changing the electrical, throwing some paint on, and selling it for today's price point. I mean, it's crazy how real estate works. So I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it. So let's get into how this thing works. You're like, Jake, you never go on site to these ever? And there's a lot of haters out there. When I put ads or marketing together, they're like, no, you're an idiot if you never go to the house. You're an idiot if you're not checking all the work yourself. But let's really talk about that, right? I was forced to not be on site, and I quadrupled my money. Okay, so I'm the case study here. And so the questions that I end up getting are, well, how do you pick the right contractor, right? How do you know that the house is, what it says it is? How do you make sure you don't get ripped off? How does all this happen? Well, the biggest question that I usually get when I talk about doing this on autopilot from miles away is, the contractor thing. How do you make sure the work is there? And so what I'm going to talk about today, and this is a central piece of being able to do it from far away, it's called fund control, right? Instagram, you're going to see this backwards. Facebook, you will see this forward. But fund control right? To flip a house, right? Costs money, right? We went over that yesterday too. It's going to cost some dollars and some cents to be able to flip a house. A contractor is going to have to do that work. Now, I showed you yesterday how you can structure the money thing where it's not your money. You can be broke. You can't have a poor mindset, but you can be broke and be able to flip houses by getting the right property under contract and then bringing a combination of private lenders into the mix. But that's when people are like, well, let me call bullshit on you some other way. Okay, you can get the money. Well, how do you make sure that the contractors aren't going to screw you over if you don't have experience in construction, right? Great question. I've got a great answer, because I'm the dude, like I said, that can't hang a picture straight at home. My wife does that for me, and I think I saw her on here saying, yeah, it's true, he sucks at this stuff. But what I can do is implement this process called fund control. And this stuff's simple, right? It takes work going out there and actually talking to these people, right? But it's simple work. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's simple. So what happens is, let's say there's a $40,000 budget, right, to flip this home. 40K, right? And the contractor, obviously needs to get paid, and we need to make sure that the contractor has, done their work, that we're not paying the contractor for scamming us. So the first thing I do, this is rocket science, I'm going to warn you. First thing I do is I check references, right? Before I hire contractors, I check references. So I usually call 3 references. I check out 3 references. I call them. I always say, hey, tell me about Jane Doe, the contractor. Did she do a good job for you? Can you tell me about the work that you've done? And then I sit and listen. And they tell me, oh yeah, Jane Doe's great. She did this great work, blah, 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 blah. I've never had first referrals that I've called say something bad about the contractor. Oh yeah, they're great, blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, great. I'm thinking about hiring them for a job. Now, if you had the opportunity, would you hire Jane again? So, oh yeah, absolutely, blah, 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 blah. And I really listen to that because that's something that a lot of times they don't expect me to ask that. So sometimes they'll be, well, you know, I would if we need this work done. Or so I listen to that tonality in their voice. But usually it's positive, right? And then I call the second one. Hey, how was Jane? Blah, blah, blah. If you had the opportunity, would you call Jane Doe again? Or would you call her back for, you know, doing construction on your house? And I listen to that. I just check the references, you guys. And I listen to what people say. But here's the thing. I check those 3 references. And then after I check those 3 references, I call the contractor, say, hey, contractor, hey, Jane Doe, check your references. They were great. Can you please send me 3 more? I need to call them today. My lender needs that. Or I'll give any type of excuse why I need 3 more references. And when you need 3 more references, and if this is somebody that says they've worked with real estate investors before, they know how to flip a house, you know, they're going to give me references this time. It's not going to be their cousin or their uncle or their aunt or some family member or their best friend. They're going to have to call people that they weren't necessarily prepared for in advance, you know. And I know I'm kind of generalizing here that contractors sometimes will give you references and they'll coach them in advance. But you call those second round and all of a sudden it's not their best references and you start seeing what's going on. You also call like online reviews like Yelp and Facebook reviews, try to get in touch with people. It's a very effective thing, yet a lot of people don't do this, okay? So I check references. I also get 3 quotes minimum just to keep it competitive, and I let them know that I'm getting 3 quotes, because if I'm getting 3 quotes and 2 people come in at 39 grand, one's at 39, one's at 41, and one's at like 28, I know something's wrong with 28, right? I'm gonna look at that. I wanna see consistency, and I'm gonna figure out why one person is off. Now, I don't have to be on site to be able to see this stuff, right? If one person says, hey, roof, windows, HVAC, paint, carpet, second one says roof, windows, HVAC, paint, carpet, and the third one says paint and carpet, right? There's something that they're missing. I can look at these line items on the quote on what they're quoting me for, right? So I'm just putting pieces together. I could do that from home. I could do that from vacation. All I need is my phone or my laptop, regardless, you know, depending on whether I'm doing a Facebook Live. I can't use my phone, then I'll use my laptop, right? So I check I get the quotes, I check references, but the big thing is once you hire somebody, you put them into a contract. If they're a licensed contractor, they have to put their license on the line to back up their work, right? Usually they're registered with the state board in whatever state that they're in, right? And that means if you pay them 40 grand throughout the course of a project, and they do a new roof, they put new windows in, they put new central heat and air and paint and carpet, everything we just talked about. If they bill us for that, and then we find out when we're reselling it that something's not working, or they skimped on something, then their license is on the line. We have a contract that says they're supposed to do all this. So if they didn't do all this, and they want to continue being a contractor, they sure as heck better, make sure that they come back and finish the work. That's part of how this game works. If they've done work on something and it's in their contract and they didn't complete it, they have to go back. There's serious legal ramifications. There's contractors that go to prison for doing this multiple times, right? So if I'm calling references, I'm checking references, I'm getting quotes and everybody says the same thing, but somebody takes money and doesn't do everything, then they could go to prison, right? It's no joke, right? Like, I could sue a contractor and win very easily if they are like, you know what, actually I'm not gonna do that, and go ahead and sue me. It's like, dude, if I sued you, which I don't sue people, I have, but if I sued you, that would be really bad for you and your career. And it's just people, they're not gonna do this, right? Sometimes they'll try to get one over on you, and we haven't even got to the fund control part yet, but that's why you do something simple like check references, right? And if something happens and the contractor's not picking up or they skimped out on you, then I'll call those references. Hey, you said that Jane Doe is a great contractor, and this is kind of a situation that's going on. Have you ever had experience with that? Remember, they always give you their best clients as references at first. So if I'm calling their best clients or their uncle or their aunt or whoever it is, say, hey, Jane Doe is in some trouble here. Jane Doe didn't do what they said, but they took the money. I'm sure that they're going to call Jane Doe and say, hey, Jane, you should probably get back to Jake's job because he's not playing around, right? So that's just as a basis, like that's how I get contractors. I especially love it when I can get references that are real estate agents, because a real estate agent's meal ticket and paycheck depends on them having a solid reputation locally. And if they're giving me contractors that are shady individuals that aren't doing all the work and they're putting their name behind it, and that's real bad for their reputation. Because remember, you guys, in whatever business you're in, whether you're flipping houses, whether you're an Instagram influencer, whether you're doing this or that, these days with technology, you do something poorly, right? You do something bad, and somebody's going to tell 20 people. You do something good, they're going to tell one person. So news gets out quick, if somebody does a bad job. And if a real estate agent's putting their name behind a shitty contractor, then word's gonna get out, right? You can imagine, I'm sure that all of you have gone and posted a bad review if somebody's ever screwed you over. It's no different with this contractor game. But you may be saying, well, Jake, yeah, that's great, but how do I not get screwed over by them? Like, I don't want to be in that situation. How do I make sure that I don't pay them the whole 40 grand and they just didn't do the central heat and air, right? And if you're not asking me that, now you are asking me that because I said it, okay? So, this fund control thing, there's a draw schedule. It's called a reimbursement structure. So when you get into this house, let's say we have this 40 grand budget. We don't advance money to the contractor, but instead, let's say this is the starting point and this is the finish line, okay? This is ugly, fugly, toe-up house, and this is flipped house, right? And there's the timeline. So right here, there's zero money, and right here, they've realized their whole 40K. So what the contractor does, and let me try to do this here. I didn't script this out, but let's see if we can do this in a way you guys understand, right? Let's say they work this first week. Instead of advancing them 5 grand to work that first week, we say, dude, work that first week, right? Do this work. And at the end of the week, send me pictures, right? The rocket science again, send me pictures and send me an invoice of the work that you're showing me in the pictures that's been completed that you're asking for the 5K for. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to make sure that, hey, that room was painted, those cabinets were done. Make sure that's what I see on the picture. Make sure that's what I see on the invoice. But I don't have the money. Usually this 40 grand is sitting in my lender's account. And then after I look at them, just to make sure I don't look like an idiot, I send that to the lender. I just send it via email or text or whatever it is, however you forward your stuff, right? Email, text, usually, I mean, if you're watching me on Instagram or Facebook, you have a computer or a smartphone. So you can do this with a computer or a smartphone. But after I verify everything looks good, because that's my reputation online, I send it to the lender. The lender's gonna look at it. Sometimes the lender's gonna send an inspector to the house to verify the work's done. Sometimes they're gonna just rely on the pictures in the invoice. If everything passes, they'll send the pictures in the invoice to me and the lender. Then me and the lender will send that 5 grand back to them after it's confirmed that it's completed. Now, this is a very standard way that contractors work in today's market. Now, some contractors, if they're only used to working with people that, retail, where they're doing a kitchen for 40 grand, they don't get to work as often and they make way more profit. But a lot of times they'll say, look, I don't work with investors. I don't do reimbursement schedules. You got to pay me in advance. That's fine. There's a lot of contractors out there, and those contractors that have that mindset and that approach, it's probably for a reason. And I don't question that. I can't afford every contractor out there. The ones that are doing luxury probably won't be a good fit for the flips that you see on my page. But contractors that aren't doing luxury, that just want consistent security, steady work, right? They want their team to be able to, work every week without going 2-3 weeks without working. They're cool with this type of structure, right? So you just have to ask about that up front around the time where you're getting quotes and checking references. Talk about fund control and the draw schedule, the reimbursement schedule. So they work a little bit. Here, let's write this out. Let's say they work, they send an invoice and pictures for 10 grand. We check it, everything looks good. We send the 10 grand, so they're paid. They work a little bit more. They send pictures and invoice for another 10 grand. They justify it with work done. We check the pictures in the invoice. We say, yeah, it works. My lender says, yeah, it works. They get paid. They do a little bit more work. We check out pictures and invoices. Yeah, it checks out. They get paid. They do the final piece of work. The property is completely done. I have my real estate agent that's going to list the house, ensure that everything in the house is completed. If everything's completed, it's called like a final punch list. They'll go through and make sure, there's nothing that was missed, because sometimes you need that third party to do that. And remember, this real estate agent is going to list the home, so they have fiduciary incentive, right? They're getting paid based on how good this house is. So if something's messed up, that real estate agent, it's in their best interest to be able to call it out. So that happens, everybody checks everything out, it's good, they send it to me, I look at the pictures in the invoice, send it to the lender, we look at pictures and invoice, everything looks good, they get paid, it's a final project. The real estate agent's the one that's gone over and looked at it. Now the real estate agent gets to take final pictures and list the property. Now, and that's the way fund control works. It's pretty simple. It's just a reimbursement schedule. It's probably backwards to what maybe you're used to, or maybe in the past if a contractor's asked you to advance money, that might be the way it works. They also send different things. I mean, there's intricacies. They send what's called a lien release every time they get paid, which means they're acknowledging on a formal document that they've been paid, and they're not going to come after you later on and say, oh, hey, you actually didn't pay me that 10 grand. I cashed the check, and so you got to pay me again. Like, there's certain things you have to do in this process, but it's a simple process. You just have to put the right puzzle pieces together. You need to have a real estate agent that's cool with going and checking in on the property from time to time. You have to have a contractor that's cool with the reimbursement schedule. And you have to have a lender that understands what they're looking at and that's not going to hold on to the money for 5 days at a time. They're going to understand there's a sense of urgency that we have to show respect to these contractors that worked and they're getting paid at the end of the week or paid after their work's completed and they show proof. We have to make sure that we have a lender that's going to go ahead and send that money quickly, so we're respecting everyone on the team, everyone's working together, and everybody's making money. That's the beauty of it. So for me, right, I'm not really involved much in this process outside of making big executive level decisions where I'm say, I'm saying, hey, look, that water line broke. Yeah, we're going to have to go get a new water line. Let me try to get more budget from my lender. Or, I know that we're thinking that we're going to sell it for $325, but we reran the comps and it looks like we could sell it for $327, so list it at $327. Or, hey, I looked at the recent comps of what's sold in the neighborhood, and instead of white cabinets, now that we're at finishes, let's do these brown or wood cabinets because that's what's selling for top dollar in the neighborhood. I'm not looking at things based off what I like. That's why it doesn't matter if I'm there doing my own personal touches and design and architecture and that kind of stuff. No, I'm doing stuff based on what's selling in the neighborhood. I can find all that out with pictures because the top selling properties in each neighborhood are going to have beautiful and thorough pictures because real estate's done, it's commerce that's done online these days. More and more, every day you're seeing more and more information from the Zillows and the Redfin and the Trulia, all these types of websites that you're able to get all of your data, if not 99% of your data, from afar, and then you have a real estate agent that's going to list it anyway, go in and confirm that everything is good, okay? So, my friends, that is how the game is played. Now, with this process, right, and buying a house, I'm just looking at numbers, and reselling the house, I'm looking at numbers, and I'm making sure that the work is done well, and it's on somebody's license, so if a new buyer comes in, they get an inspection and an appraisal, and it has to pass a minimum property condition. So if somebody came in and tried to skate around doing things right, they'll get called out. And, their license and them not going to jail, they go to jail if they mess that up, if they're doing stuff intentionally and they do it over and over. So it's in everyone's best interest to work together. If this contractor wants multiple projects from me, they just do a good job and communicate. We'll respect each other. I'm not here to have contractors work for me that aren't going to make money. My contractors make great money. They have consistent work. I have a few different teams in every pocket that I'm in, but it's a competitive situation, right? I can't move forward on a flip if the numbers don't work. So that is how I do this. Now, I'm able to do this, and it took me a long time, and I've obviously gone through some pretty tough scenarios throughout my life. If you haven't heard the story, I learned how to do some of this stuff because my father-in-law passed, and 6 weeks later, my dad passed, and I had to figure this thing out on how to do this from afar because I was handling funerals, and my flips were in different parts of the country, right? I had to remove myself from my situation. I was forced to remove it. It wasn't by choice. It was forced to be able to handle stuff that was more important. But when I came back, I realized where I was a good fit for the system and where I needed to be hands off and trust that I picked the right people. So it's all about picking the right people up front, putting them in a position to succeed and succeed profitably, and then stepping back and making executive level decisions where need be. Now, you guys, right now, just today, I don't know if we bought it yet, but today I'm buying a property at 160 grand. There's 35 in rehab, and the resale is like 255, 260. Next week, I'm buying a property at $190,000. There's 45 grand in rehab, and the resale is 340 grand. Also next week, I'm reselling a house that I bought for 166,000. We ended up putting 51 into it, and we're reselling it for 285. I'm able to do this over and over and over. One of those properties, I stepped foot inside one time when I was driving through that town, going somewhere else. It wasn't even a business trip. And, so I stepped inside. I was like, yeah, this house is pretty shitty, and it looks like it did in the pictures. And let me know if you need any help. I see where things are. It's good to see and put myself in front of you, and you put yourself in front of me, shake your hand. But I could do all that via FaceTime if need be. And that's how I typically run my business. So if you add that up, and look, disclaimer, not everybody here is going to be able, just by using your phone, I'm a success story, right? Legally I have to say this. Like I'm not guaranteeing that everybody's going to make 6 or 7 figures off of flipping houses doing it the same way, right? You may do one house, instead of making 40 grand on a flip, you may make 20 grand. Or you make 10 grand for all intents and purposes. But I want you to know, like right now, me, by myself, right? And I have all these pieces in place for all these flips. I currently have like 18 or 19 different flips going on, depending on whether or not we've closed on the house that we're trying to buy today, right? Each of those is gonna make anywhere from probably 12 grand to 65 grand. So if you do the math, and I'm selling a few houses a month and buying a few houses a month and not spending a ton of time on it and having the time to do this kind of stuff, right? It's possible. That's all I'm saying, it's possible. I work hard, I work very smart, I test things out, I've done a lot of stuff wrong. I've failed a lot, so I'm not scared that much of failure when it comes to this house flipping game. But it's possible. I'm not the smartest dude. I've lost all my money a couple of times. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a real estate agent. A lot of you guys are reaching out to me on Facebook and Instagram, giving me advice on marketing homes and giving me advice on lending and it's stuff. I'm always going to be a student of the game. If you find me a new resource and you're like, hey, I think you should check this out, or hey, I think you should try this, and it's getting results for people, I would be an idiot to not try it and put it into my system, because all it takes is small tweaks once you have momentum going to be able to make an additional 10, 20, 30 grand. And who's going to say no to an additional 10, 20, or 30 grand? I will always try those new things as long as I can see that other people are doing it successfully. I can model them and put my own spin to it. So, you guys, that is today's Instagram and that is today's Facebook. I hope this gave you a little bit of clarity on how this business is run. I mean, just off of this fund control with contractors, it changes things a little bit because there's a lot of moving pieces working together, and they're all working toward the common goal, and the common goal is to flip this house profitably. And if you flip a house profitably, everybody gets paid, and if everybody gets paid, that means you get what's left over. And if you get what's left over, that means you're making money at the end of the day and feeding a lot of other people in this little ecosystem you're doing. So if you're in it for the money, that's a great way for money, right? If you're in it to help other people out, you can help a lot of people out. Contractors, families, the laborers, the specialists, the subcontractors, the real estate agent, the team coordinator for the real estate agent, the real estate agent's broker, the new family that's going to move into your home, your lender, your lender's family. There's a lot of different people in this web, and I'm very proud to be able to help a lot of people just by being here, making my executive level decisions and letting people that are great at what they do their thing while I stay out of their way until they need me. Pretty cool, right? So you guys, any questions? Any questions? I know that there's a ton of questions here. I live in Temecula, California. These are a lot of stuff. So if you have any questions, throw them at me again. If not, we're going to bounce out and we'll probably do another one of these tomorrow or Friday. I appreciate you guys, man. This is fun. I like talking shop. I like coaching. I do this quite often in my mentorship group. My students get a lot out of it. My clients or students or whatever you say, whatever you call them, right? My business partners. And flipping houses has allowed me to be able to share this stuff. And it obviously is important to me because of what was, the events in my life that forced me to be where I'm at, right? I've gone through a lot of crap to get here. And that crap that I've gone through has forced me to do things differently. And I enjoy teaching. And I can teach. I can be here teaching while there's 19 flips going on. People are buying and selling properties. I know that the people that are in place handling it are doing their thing for the common good of everybody involved, right? And so that's a very cool thing. It's a very empowering thing. The money ain't bad either. But, it's a good hustle. And technology, along with the resources financially that are out there in 2019, it doesn't hurt. So you don't have to be these old dinosaurs that are out there using all their own money, using their own crew for construction, right? Them in there swinging the hammer, listing the house himself as a real estate agent. If you delegate correctly, then you're spending a third or a quarter or 10% of the time on it, but you're still making a ton of money. It's just everybody gets theirs. You get what's left over, and usually what's left over is like 90% of what you would have made if you would have done it all yourself. But if you're sticking back and letting everybody do their thing in this ecosystem of flipping a house, then you have more time to buy more houses. and do more Instagram lives and do more Facebook lives. So you guys, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. God bless. I appreciate it. Send me a private message or DM if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to serve. And yeah, go get what's yours, you guys. There's so much opportunity out there for everyone, not even just in real estate. Just go out there, be a person of value, and you will get financially compensated. Don't go out there to get paid. Go out there to provide value, and money follows that. I'm telling you guys right now. So, all right, y'all, I'm out. Instagram, we're going to end this.